Yo, what up, Street Talks? There, Kim. Alright, the thought. This one is about self actualization. And, artistic self actualization, why this is important, what it means, and so forth. So, first and foremost, why self actualization and why is this an interesting goal? So, basically, my gist is I've been reading Aristotle's Metaphysics, and it's actually a pretty interesting read. I think I've always been a little suspicious of metaphysics in general because it just seems like a lot of people who talk metaphysics or are interested in metaphysics tend to be thinkers and philosophers who just want to seem fancy for the sake of being fancy rather than, thinking of things which I consider of having of some sort of pragmatic worth. However, the usefulness, I think, of studying metaphysics or think about metaphysics is like, what are the forms of physics principles we could think about in terms of actualizing human potential? So I think ultimately for me, self-actualization is the thing that actually interests me the most. Human actualization. And I think the weird bias we have in today's world is we think we want to actualize technology for the sake of actualizing technology. So especially a lot of people in Silicon Valley, they think it's like technology as a sake unto itself, whereas I think the better way to think about it is technology as a means to actualize human potential. Now, the problem is I think a lot of today's world, the tricky thing with technology, not all technology is created equal, and there are certain types of technology which actually stunt human potential and certain types of technology which actualize human potential. So for example, I think photography video is good for humans. Photography and video is good for actualizing artistic, creative, philosophical potential, and anything that can motivate us or set us into motion tend to be good, right? So, having turbo thoughts or thoughts that kind of get you going, thoughts that inspire you and motivate you are very good. And things which prevent you from doing things, tend to be bad. And I think what inspires me is like striving, we're alive, obviously. So how can we strive to extract the maximum potential or happiness or joy or to actualize ourselves, art, to our greatest capacity? And in some ways, I hope I don't, all my thoughts, everything is always in a state of becoming. I hope that I never figure out the absolute answer, or else life would get boring. So for me, the constant striving and the constant iteration of my thoughts is what makes all of this kind of fun, beautiful, and meaningful. If everything was too clearly charted and too easy obvious, then it would not be fun for me at all. So then the next thought is, how does one actually self-actualize themselves, and what is the maximal, what is the end game? what is there a certain peak or an end to human actualization, or is it something that could happen indefinitely? So certainly death is the ultimate creative constraint which binds all of us, no matter how rich, smart, or skilled we are. We're all gonna die, and I think in some ways we all should die. And my thought is, life without death isn't a life worth living, because death is what makes life beautiful. And so I think it does seem like the notion of conservation of energy is kind of a good one. Is, you know, every single day you only have a certain amount of energy and, you know, force, and the more you expend force and mental energy or physical energy or power onto things that you don't really care for, it tends to be like energy wasted. So to use an inappropriate metaphor, so if you imagine if you started off the day and you just rubbed one out real quick, you would probably have less physiological energy or force to pursue the day. Similarly speaking, if you're going to try 1 rep max deadlift, you probably don't want to blow your load before doing it. It seems that to conserve our energy, to recharge our energy, and to use it mindfully or wisely seems to be the goal. And I think that's a really important principle, is this principle of wisdom. And because, you know, we think that what we want is to be rich and stuff like that, but I think more interesting than money is wisdom. So wisdom towards pursuing what is beneficial to you and society and the rest of the world and future versions of humanity, and to avoid what's not important. And also part of it too is like a physiological joy. Like, I don't want to wake up every day feeling miserable, and typically I prefer having a good mood. And for me, the reason why I like having a good mood is that the better my mood, the more interesting turbo thoughts that I could share with you, and it ends up becoming kind of like this like positive flywheel, where my good mood and stuff like that inspires me to do more and create more, and hopefully help others and help myself more. Sort of accidental. And so, yeah, so I suppose when it comes to notions of self-actualization, think about deepening your own wisdom, deepening your own activity, and thinking about the artistic and creative impact you desire to make. Alright, Street Talk. So another turbo thought. This notion is about supreme life, or maybe supreme lifestyle. So it seems, what is it that we want? I think we want a happier, more creative, productive life, the best life possible. And I have some simple suggestions. It does seem that the more time I spend outdoors getting sunlight, the better. So brightness, light is a good thing. There's no amount of light that's better than the sun. So obviously there's days where it's overcast, you know, not much you can do about that. But the days where the sun is good, try to get as much vitamin D's as possible. First thought. Second thought is, I think it's impossible to be quote happy unless you've done some sort of walking during the day. So without doing some sort of walking and interacting and being part of society, I don't think you could live the happiest, most, fulfilling life possible. So some sort of interaction with embodied reality seems to be quite important. And I still think about my buddy Matthias from Stockholm. He told me the Swedish saying, "There's no such thing as good weather. Bad weather, only bad clothing." So, what's a good use of money investment? Just merino wool, down jackets, Gore-Tex boots, whatever it may be. So equipping yourself with the equipment and gear, which allows you to go outside for longer periods of time, to be warmer, and it's like, and my sense is that, like, it's not being warm for the sake of being warm, but the benefit of the warmth is it just allows you to have more time to spend outdoors. Because it does seem that the more time we spend outdoors, interacting with embodied reality, the happier we are. And I've been philosophizing a lot about this too, but like, what is the point of happiness? Is it happiness for happiness' sake, as good Aristotle says? My thought or intervention is actually the goal is happiness for the sake of artistic creativity, philosophical insights, artistic insights, whatever you want to call it. And philosophically too, it's for the sake of artistic and creative optimism towards life, because I think there's a lot of people who tend to slander life. It's like, oh, the worst thing that could have happened to you is being born, whereas I think that being born is probably the best thing that one could do to what could have happened to oneself. And actually on top of that, giving birth to new life is also a great good and a great blessing, because no one's ever asked to be born, but once you're born, you're alive. And so try to figure out how to make the best use of you being alive. So how do we best express gratitude for life and being alive? It's just going outdoors as much as you can, creating your thoughts and stuff like that. And the more you could create, the more you could share, it seems the better. And in the midst of all that, to kind of create new ideas, to share new ideas, remix new ideas, to share ideas that kind of move people. So it does seem that human motivation and movement is the goal. Anything you could do so, the better. Yo, what up, Street Gods? Eric Kim. Alright, another thought. Human movement and motivation is the goal. So, us as artists and creators, what is we trying to do? I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to set our own selves and our own muscles into motion. And also to share these artworks that put others into motion. So the reason why this is important is that, the source of all, human actualization and potentiality comes from the fact that we could actually move ourselves and move others. Without movement, there could be no creation, and no creation is no life. So even for me, the reason why I love blogging and vlogging so much is that it encourages movement. Like, as much as I love to blog, typically it's very stationary, like, either I'm doing a standing desk at home or I'm just kind of stuck in one spot. But the nice thing about blogging or vlogging is that I could actually move. I could use my legs. And even Nietzsche says, trust no thought which doesn't come to you while you're walking or moving. And the more time we could actually interact and engage with embodied reality, I think we tend to be a lot happier, more productive, and we get more interesting thoughts. And we could see and witness more things, and by seeing and witnessing more things, we get more motivated to create more artworks. And so I think one of the biases in photography is that like we're all striving for some sort of form of perfection. It's like, oh, I just want to make a few artworks which I consider perfect, that are immutable and last forever. But, you know, even if we think about Picasso, like he created on average, I think 1 to 2 artworks a day for his entire life until he died at like age 30, 80 something. And so it does seem that like for me to focus more on our productivity and our being prolific and making a lot is actually far more interesting, because you know, as we're creating, we learn. It's kind of like you know, the way I think about it is kind of like meta learning or meta, you know, becoming. So like even thinking about Aristotle and his physics, metaphysics book, the form of self-actualization, like we only self-actualize as we act and do stuff through action. So to think about yourself, like if you want to become self-actualized as a photographer, as an artist, as a creator, whatever, you just gotta act more and do more. Do the thing you desire to see manifested. Like even with weightlifting, this is the epiphany I had last night, is that like as a power lifter or doing deadlifts or squats, the goal is to actually be doing the activity, not actually reaching some sort of goal. And once again, I think this is an important point, is the goal isn't the achievement, the goal is the activity in itself. And the joy is the activity in itself. So as you're doing whatever you're doing, just enjoy it. So for example, like if you're doing a vlog or making a video or, you know, making photos, the goal is, the reward isn't that like, you know, you're gonna get like 1 million likes or 1 million followers on your things or make a bunch of money doing it, but just enjoy it for the sake of doing it. So moral of the story is act more, think less. Yo, what up, Street Dogs? There, Kim, or the thought. The cool thing about doing 4K 60 FPS video, you can just capture more data information. So for example, I see all these wonderful lights and trees and stuff like that, and one of the downsides of just typical photography is that you can't actually capture that much data. Like, you know, you got a frame and stuff like that. Whereas with video, you can just kind of capture it all. Even see interesting effects, like you see my shadow here as I move out. Kind of goes here, back and forth. And in theory, And in theory also like you could just, you know, review the 4K video and you could just extract 4,000 pixel wide images, so you essentially got that as well. Yeah, and it seems like in today's COVID world, you know, everyone's kind of stuck indoors all day, watching Netflix, watching other people live their lives and stuff like that. It seems far more fun and interesting is that if you just kind of go outdoors, you live your life, you experience life, and it doesn't even really matter how interesting your city or your town is or whatever, to just walk as much as you can and shoot and record and video and upload as much of it as you can. It seems the better. And you know, everyone's always taught us that, like, you know, quality over quantity, blah blah, but my intervention now is I feel like that's actually not the case. I almost feel like now in today's world, whoever creates more is kind of better off, because you know we're kind of gluttonous for more information, more visual sites, more information. So the more visual stimuli you could shoot, capture, and share, it seems better. One of my personal goals is for me to be physically fit and physiologically fit enough that, like, yeah, the more I could walk, the more I could talk, the more I could think, the more I could record, the more I could create. And I don't know, like, I think legit I am actually far happier the more time I spend outdoors. Like, I do think that in some ways being out in the streets and actually doing stuff, it's like real life is like the ultimate Grand Theft Auto, is that you know, everyone's always playing, you know, like everyone loves video games because like the whole open world concept, but why don't we also enjoy this like open world concept for ourselves, that's, you know, kind of outdoors and public spaces. And the great thing about the real world is it's ultimately the ultimate random generated map where things are constantly changing, evolving, and you're not quite sure what you're gonna kind of get yourself into. So yeah, so essentially life becomes far more interesting, it becomes far more interactive and engaging, and less boring. I think, like, even one thing Nietzsche said is life is too infinitely too long to be bored, or to allow ourselves to be bored. So it seems that ultimately, for me at least, boredom is the ultimate enemy, and anything we could do to avoid boredom, the better. So if you think that Grand Theft Auto, real life is like Grand Theft Auto, go out and explore more. Yo, what up, Street Dogs? There, Kim. Alright, the thought. How to move yourself to make photos. So it seems the goal is to make new photos, not to make great photos, but to make new photos. And I think this is the goal. It seems the goal is to, it's so simple, to just walk more. The more you walk, the more you'll see, the more you'll experience, and the more you'll delight in life. Nice little sunset here in Providence. Alright, so it seems like some practical thoughts. The best stimulus is for photography, just drink more coffee. And also increasing the frequency in which you just kind of go outdoors and walk around. So obviously we're living in COVID times, whatever, but my thought is, I don't know, I don't think, for the most part, I don't really think COVID will ever go away. And so if we kind of accept the fact that COVID may never go away, then the question is, in the constraints of the COVID world, how can we thrive? So my thought is go out more, witness more, experience more, and you'll find more inspiration to shoot. And yeah, like insofar much as you can, walk around your neighborhood, walk around new ways that you typically don't. So taking novel paths. So we typically, you know, when we're driving our cars or, you know, walking, we almost always take the same walking path, but just kind of switch it up a little. This means rely less on Google Maps and more your intuition. I know for myself personally, like I'm a slave to Google Maps and I've always had a horrible sense of direction, and it seems hugely beneficial that the less that I actually listen to Google Maps, the more I just kind of walk and just follow my own nose, the better, because the more you could just kind of allow yourself to do random walks, the more novelty you'll experience. And I think what drives a lot of us is novelty, which means to see familiar things in like slightly novel, interesting ways. And I think, I don't know, if you're the type of person you like to travel and stuff like that, it does seem that novelty is what brings us a lot of joy and delight. Is the more novelty we can see and experience, the better. And another thing that I've realized is no matter how nice your house, your neighborhood, your environment, your city, whatever, sooner or later you're gonna kind of get bored of it. So you're gonna have to kind of switch up your routine. So doing new walking paths, visiting places you typically don't. And certainly in today's COVID world, we can't always just be traveling anymore. And so I think in some ways, we can allow ourselves to travel in different degrees. So going to certain neighborhoods in your town that you typically don't, and to just walk around a little bit differently, and to experience and maybe re-experience old sites in new ways. Seems to be a nice, yeah, I like that. Re-experience old things in new ways. So let's say we typically have a typical walking path. Do the same walking path, except, you know, walk at it backwards or forwards or whatever direction you may walk it. So walk more, think more, experience more, and the happier you'll be.